is I grew up in a home where I did have sexual abuse happen, and they would put me on stage and ask me to talk about it repeatedly. You already know who it is.
Look good. I like your Elton John shirt. I'm almost wearing a Brahma shirt.
I had to do something that they would have,
Yes.
They're going to be like, he's gay. Yeah.
That's an idol.
Yeah.
It's a little idol you have on your shirt. I am creating
idols in my life. Elton John, hit me up.
So tell me a little bit about you. Before because obviously this is one part of our story.
Yeah.
But you're a person.
Yeah, that's not just me.
Right, exactly. Yeah. What do you enjoy doing that makes you happy? And
I have 4 dogs and a loving husband, and we live on a farm, and we're about to get goats, and I just love nature. That's a big part of me.
Actually, I can agree with you. I'm kind of the same on that.
Yeah.
Well, and aside from that, what are some things that inspire you to keep going and make life better after what you went through?
Justice. That is something that leads me. I've always been, which they used to say it as it was a bad thing, but I'm a black and white thinker. I don't think that that's actually something that isn't negative about me. I think it's a positive.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. I think that's actually a really good point and a good segue into what we're talking about is that they often would give us different identities.
Yeah.
Than what we wanted or what we had. And I mean, they'd strip us down to nothing and then try to tell us what we were. What were some things that they tried to tell you were?
Some of my favorite things that I say favorite condescendingly, but I loved whenever Mark would tell me that I needed to dip my sword in honey, saying that I'm always just too blunt, I'm too forward, I'm too headstrong. He would call me his own little bulldog. Things get weird.
Yeah.
It gets weird.
I do remember that honey thing because they like that. There was a scripture about coating your words in honey or something like that. Or your words are sweet like honey. I don't even know. There were so many scriptures they used.
I remember one scripture that was always used against me was my darling among young women, you are like lilies. And I was never like, they're like, Sierrah's just not a flower. She's too...
What?
Yeah. Like I was just too...
You weren't soft and fun.
I was not soft. I'm not a soft woman.
Okay.
That was just never my brand.
Yeah.
I was always... I like to say that I was used as a weapon.
Tell me a little bit more about that. Being used as a weapon.
I'm so blunt, so it just never bothered me to... Like, they would use words and try to say that I had, like, prophetic gifts and things like in that nature. But it was always used as, like, I would be called up to call out someone's sin, if that makes sense. Like, you're doing this wrong. And so
they did like that.
They did.
They loved calling people out. They made us all snitch on each other.
Definitely, like, Mark used to, like, reference me as in one of the... I don't even know if he's a pastor or minister leader, Damon Thompson.
Oh.
Do you remember how he was so, like...
Yes.
That's what they would...
I call it misogynistic, but...
Oh, shit, don't call me that. But I'm not.
Well,
but,
you are a woman.
Yeah. But, when I... Like, that same fire he had, that's what they tried to...
What would I even call that? Like, offensive, kind of.
Yeah.
To be honest. Like...
Rude? Rude is what I was. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
But that's funny because... We were even talking earlier and you were saying that they always said that you were too much that, but then they use it and they use you to do it because they like that shock factor.
You put me in front of a mic. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Absolutely. They want it to be cutting almost. Okay. So you were used as somebody who was cutting. And we all remember, a lot of us, and especially like the people who've been following our story, we remember Damon Thompson.
Yeah.
And how...
Some crazy clips if you look him up.
Dude, he's crazy.
It is crazy.
He is crazy. Now, I've heard that he's changed or whatever, but I'm not really interested in that necessarily. A lot of his sermons were used. Were they still used whenever you were there? His sermons?
Yeah.
Did they follow Damon?
Old Rick Pino videos that you guys definitely had in your era. Yeah, they were still used.
See, Rick Pino, I don't think I know who that is. But
yes, you do.
I do?
You do.
Who is it?
If I showed you, it looks like Jack Black.
Oh, the socks guy.
Yes! Round, Jesus, right round.
Oh my
also,
God.
Let's talk about that.
Okay, let's talk about
that song
it.
is secular.
That's true, yes.
We're talking about like going down on somebody. Sorry.
Is it really? I did not know that.
You spin my head right round.
Oh.
Like a record, baby.
Yeah, I mean, that makes sense.
And then they were like having us jump around with our nasty socks after dance practice. All these kids in a room. That was a whole weird thing.
So they played those videos over and over again?
In Bonfire, the church group. Like,
okay, well, I was in
at FOC.
I remember I was in leadership in Bonfire for a while, I guess. So
yeah,
I'm sure they did do some of that stuff.
It was wild.
So were you with them whenever they got kicked out of that church?
Yes.
Can you tell me a little bit more about like what you believed happened with that? Because from my perspective, they were pushed out. That's what I heard.
I'm sure we were pushed out. Being younger, I wasn't a leader. I was fed information.
Okay.
So it's really hard for me because there's a lot of it that has definitely been trauma dumped out of my brain.
Yeah.
And then there's a lot that I'm like, I only remember what they told me.
Yeah, of course.
And it was just, God is leading us this way because they had to control the narrative.
That's what they said to us all the time.
Yeah. So.
Okay. Well, I believe that they were forced out of that ministry after a lot of things started coming out. But, well, tell me a little bit more about how you actually met Mark and Leslie and got involved in Adulam Youth Outreach.
So actually, my older sister, who was in the group with you, is how I would have met them. I met them, 2007? When they first got here?
Yes, because they went to the same. We all went to the same church. It was House of Praise. That's right.
And
that's the one they were kicked out of.
Yes. And so I have vivid memories of Leslie always telling me that I had Eli on one hip and Zeke on the other, and I was just like, they were that little. I was. That's how. Whenever I was there, I was able to carry them like they were kids.
Yeah, because you would come over every once in a while with us, but you weren't staying there or as involved while I was there necessarily.
Correct. So part of the reason that I was around was, so they have a tend to isolate you. So I knew my sister was there, and I knew the only way I was going to get to see my sister is if I went over there.
Yeah.
But then you get over there, and you're a kid, and you get brainwashed, and you're like, oh, four-wheelers, they have all this land.
Oh, God, they had four-wheelers when you were there?
Didn't they? They had four-wheelers.
No.
They did when I first met them, before they even started us living there, because it started with me.
I don't remember them for long, but yeah, they had four-wheelers.
So on and off, they had four-wheelers.
They had four-wheelers, and that's how they got us.
Well,
that's how they got this country kid, I'll tell you that.
That's what I was going to say, is that their house, okay, so we lived in Russellville. It was it is a tiny little town, and it's a lot of poverty, and we are a lot of poor kids. Now, some of us, our parents, did a good job the way they knew how. We're not going to get into our parent stuff. Regardless, we were not in situations where we had like nice houses and stuff, and so most of the time, that's what I mean by vulnerable children, is that they have a lot of things that make them more susceptible.
Came from the traditional. And what they preyed on, like the broken homes. So, our mom didn't have enough money for as many kids as she had.
Yeah.
We didn't have stable living conditions. We went to a small school. So it looked, and, the way it was sold to you was, come do the right thing for God. Like, who wants, as a child, to upset,
Right.
I mean, it's a heavy burden to lay on like a little kid, but that's how it happened.
Well, and I think the parents and us were manipulated.
Yeah.
And we got to their house and we were like, oh, wow, this is a nice house. And, they seem all warm and cozy. And it's just like with the ramp, it's the deeper you get into it, the worse it gets.
Yeah.
So it seems great from the outside.
Yeah. And then once you get in, you find a sense of, you automatically find somebody in the group of teens or kids that you bond with. And then the whole experience in itself creates such deep connection immediately because you trauma bond.
Right.
And the things that I had went through, which came from like sexual assault and all these things that I was trying to get away from. And I ended up walking into a cult, not knowing, because I just wanted love and acceptance. And Mark was always good at trying to be that father figure.
Oh, yeah. Mark was like the epitome of the best youth pastor.
Yeah.
Crazy,
Crazy van driver, that was even his name on
whatever. He'll probably take that down somehow, I'm sure, after that comes up. But yeah, he had a Facebook that says like van driver,
which wasn't safe. We were never in seatbelts.
That's true.
Through Texas,
a lot of times we didn't have AC and stuff.
Yeah.
And by the way, a lot of their vans were donated to them.
Yeah,
paid for. So when did you first actually start like living there or staying there more often?
Oh man, I think I started staying the night on the weekends around the age of 14. I moved in at 15.
Was this before or after your older sister left?
After.
Can I ask, seeing your sister go through that, how did you get to the point where it was like, okay, I don't really know what your dynamic was at that time, but I'm sure that's really tough.
So I won't speak for Shayna's story. I want her to be able to tell it. But I do know that she was a dog kept on a chain. And if you keep a dog on a chain for too long, eventually they're going to go wild when they get let go of. And whenever Shayna kind of went and did her own thing, Mark and Leslie, of course, are very good at, she had demons, and I should pray for my sister. Okay. And you should find solace and family in us, because they would also tell you things like, and to isolate you from your family. Your mom's not a good mom. Why would your mom leave you? Blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
All these things. And they just completely, the narcissistic tendencies just evolve, and they get so good at it. And being
There's a reason. There's a reason they've made so much money.
There is. They're good at what. Yes. They're good at playing the game.
They really are, to a sick degree.
Yeah.
So they basically, got you into their head and what they were thinking, and scooped you up. Because it's funny how they took these people who were also associated with others. That's one way they got people. And so once they couldn't prey on your older sister as much, they started preying on you.
Yeah. And it was definitely, I'm sure they used me several times to try to reach out to Shayna to get her to come back.
Wow.
And yeah, I remember even like in the same sentence during dance practices on Remnant, they would tell me I'm not good enough for Shayna solo. So like they would call her this horrible person, but also she's something to strive for.
They had that about a lot of people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There was definitely the double standard.
Depending on what they needed it for.
Yep.
Seems like it.
However they wanted me to wear the mask.
Yeah.
They would coach you into that route.
Right. And I've talked to people at the ramp too. It's kind of like that. The more that you're complicit with them, the more you do what they say, the more you get.
And I never really struggled with people pleasing until I got there.
Well, I wonder why.
Yeah.
Because they made you want to people please so bad. You wanted to please them.
Oh my gosh. I thought that if I didn't do a good thing, then Mark wasn't going to be a part of my life anymore. And coming from someone like me, who I grew up and didn't know who my biological dad is, father figures had tried to step in, and then, this guy who's like almost has a sense of like being famous.
He's kind of charismatic.
Small town famous guy. Like, he's so special. And he's charming.
He is very charming. Yes. Very charming.
It's sickening almost.
Sweet. Soft.
Yeah. And he knows how to talk to women.
He does.
And you would be a good car salesman.
He can't work that hard.
Oh, come
on. He needs secret weapons,
Yeah.
Let's see, I'm like Shayna. I'm like looking at the camera, smiling at my own jokes. So you're 13 or 14, and you're telling me how did you get kind of where you're moving in with them?
Oh, the pressure.
Yeah. So they started. What do you think, Shayna, was a key way that they got you to move in with them? Or
yeah.
Okay.
I definitely wanted to be around Shayna. And then, like I said, once you get there, you have friends there. It's almost, I remember moving in and there was people there. I don't want to name names in case they don't want to come forward right now, but definitely a lot of the girls. At that point, I was also friends with all the dollar kids.
Yeah.
Like me and Caroline were in the same age.
Yeah.
Me and Molly, you can bleep out these names if you need to, but the
thing is they've exploited their kids a lot. So.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
But I remember I had sleepovers with Molly and Caroline in their bedroom when Caroline had like peach tie-dye stuff in her room. We would sing Hannah Montana songs. Like we were little girls growing up together.
I remember that same room.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And that really ties you in, because that's the whole thing about cults and mistreatment. Sorry, one second. I gotta touch my eye.
You're okay.
Got allergies out of that eye. Actually, probably the smog outside, honestly.
It's those demons.
Well, you know.
If you don't laugh, it's so heavy.
It's true. So that's the hard part about cults is not only is it a slow burn,
it is,
but you have a lot of quote unquote good in between the bad and real good between the bad.
Yeah.
And there's times,
I made real friends there.
Exactly. You get really close to people and you do find you're so one-on-one with people all the time that there's something good about that. But that's also what makes it so twisted.
You're always put into small groups.
Yeah.
It's always the girls and the guys are going out and doing these things, and you're looking at it as like team building, but really it's you're going to make money for them.
Yes, because it's exploitation.
Yeah.
They made it fun or whatever. Well, we made it fun because we are great, but
and we're hilarious teenagers.
Right. We're always
trauma bonded. Like you all know how to make something funny that's not necessarily supposed to be funny.
Right. Well, and I think that's another side of exactly the same point is that we kind of bonded behind the scenes too about the abuse. Because there were times when we'd like look at each other.
Yeah.
Or you just kind of knew like something's wrong. But then on the other side of that bonding, there's also the fear that they could always get us to snitch on each other.
Oh my gosh. My best friends in the whole thing, I would tell on them because they had me my alliance was with Mark and Leslie because I was trying to look out for the good of the group, even though I knew that I was fully breaking the trust of my friends. But
yeah. But there's been I don't know if you've ever seen this stuff. I know we all like love cult things because of in crime. But whenever people are pressured into confessions too, it's inevitable. Like they're going to find something that they want to get out of you. And they probably know to an extent there's always going to be something going on behind the scenes. So they use that as a way to pretend that they know something from God too. Yeah. I mean, I felt like that. Did you feel like that?
Definitely. It was picture being in a room as a student and you have 4 or 5 people that you've been taught in church, respect your elders, don't backtalk, don't do all these things. You have rules about what you can wear, what you can't wear, what you can listen to, what you can't listen to. They're the ones cooking our food. You get to make no choices through the day. And then these are the people that you're saying like get to rule your life basically. And then you have a friend and they've taught you through their own twisted scripture that they're doing wrong and you should do this for them.
Yeah.
And they guilt trip you into just creating the cycle of disunity. I know that there's so much verbiage that went along with
there is.
Everything that is just
I could almost do like a dictionary of all the verbiage we have.
We could do a handbook almost.
Really.
Yeah.
Did they have contracts when you were there?
Yep.
What was
My
that
mom
like?
didn't sign them, but I was definitely around for others that did have them and that were signed. I think I still have a copy of one in all of my old stuff. I would have to look.
Do you know much about that? Like what was on them or what the purpose was for that?
Certain holidays, it would be like your business hours kind of thing. You would have to talk about
your business hours.
Yeah, like you could only come see your kids on certain days and you have to
What?
Oh yeah. Couldn't see him for a month.
Yeah. So I did see the first month thing because that was in an article.
Yeah, like certain holidays you wouldn't be able to go home. They couldn't just show up unannounced. You would have to call, get it approved through Mark and Leslie. Your parents weren't allowed to come get you from school. Oh yeah, there was definitely
well, let me just say that an NDA does not an NDA is not always final. So if anybody's watching this and they signed an NDA, you actually don't you need to get that checked out because sometimes you can actually have
there's loopholes.
Yeah, there's loopholes, and sometimes that doesn't just mean that they can, especially if you're like a minor. Probably, I don't think.
Is that even legal?
I don't know. Like, why do you need that anyway?
That just screams sketch.
Yeah, why the hell would you need that?
Yeah.
So tell me a little bit more about the first time that you felt like something was really off.
Oh, the first time I felt like something was off was the kids play basketball, and I watched him get overtly aggressive.
Yes, he would get aggressive a lot.
Yeah,
to prove himself.
Yes, you had to be macho, and you had to prove your way. And I remember watching Mark get aggressive with them while they played sports and things like that. Us little kids were supposed to be outside just playing, but you still watch what's happening around you. And I remember watching a guy get slammed up against the door of the garage before it was redone. And then I remember, I don't think I was at House of Praise whenever you guys brought the computer back over, but I was there the day.
Really?
I was there with Caroline and them, and I remember getting sent upstairs, and it was a huge thing. Like,
okay, tell me what you remember and like what happened.
So I remember the kids needing a computer.
Time. This is a computer that whenever they moved out of the old church and got kicked out, they
cleaning out the office.
Right, they cleaned out their office at the church, brought the computer home. Several of us had already been hanging out at their house, and so this is when
this was a huge like time change. Like things were shifting in the ministry.
They made a doulum, and there were a bunch of kids there, and so they were basically getting the computer set up at the house.
Yes.
Okay.
And so the kids could use it and stuff. I remember like us little girls were excited about getting to listen to music down there in like the little den that it was going in.
Yeah.
And I remember it just being a big deal, and I remember Caroline crying. I remember talking to my sister afterwards, and she was like, we found stuff we shouldn't have found. And I was like, well, what did you find?
Yeah.
Like, what could you, me being a kid, I was like, what's on there?
Yeah, right.
You know?
You could not even fathom.
Yeah. And then I was like, and she was like, it's bad things. And I was like of people? You know, and I remember like just holding that memory, not really knowing what was happening, but I remember holding the memory knowing that maybe Mark wasn't as good as maybe Daddy Mark wasn't Daddy Mark. So I hate saying that.
Whenever you started thinking about that later, is that when that started to occur to you, or did it happen at that time?
Later.
Okay.
But I remember when we would have Bible study in the morning and kids just getting in trouble for being tired. And I remember like, why do we do that? Like, why is that so bad? I remember I wore a tank top as a kid and getting in trouble for showing my shoulders. Like, what did my shoulders do to you? I remember
your sexy ass shoulders.
Yeah. I mean, damn. And so I remember not getting to listen. Like, my mom had let us listen to country music our whole lives.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden country music has demons in it. You know,
your mom actually had great taste in music.
Thank you.
I learned about the Bee Gees from her.
Yes. And so there was a lot of things that just made you go,
yeah,
well, that's not what other kids do.
Right.
But then, you know, they would use, you're chosen, you're called for a generation, right. You're not meant for
the world.
Complacency. Yeah.
You're not like them. You're different.
Yeah.
You're different.
I am different.
And you're being called to something that you need to sacrifice those things.
And you should be happy about those sacrifices.
Yes. You're going to suffer, but you're going to be happy
about
it. So what were some things that you saw that really disturbed you? That anything that comes to mind?
Do you want me to talk about things that I saw or things that happened to me?
Oh, well, whatever you want. Like,
because
tell me about anything that you feel is important for us to know. That's what I should ask.
I definitely, you know, in one of your other videos, you mentioned how we raise their kids.
Yes.
I had a huge part in raising their second to last baby, the little boy.
Zeke.
Yeah, Zeke. And, you know, I remember that Heather before us, he called her mom.
Yes.
But after Heather bounced and she was out, like, I kind of stepped up and I gave them their baths, him and Bella. And at points I got in trouble during Ray Alana's, which is a big thing here locally where people do like a resale for women and baby stuff. Anyway,
yeah,
Leslie was
I don't even know how they got involved in that, but
I don't either. Just
anyway, so you were giving them baths all the time.
Yeah, I was constantly taking care of them, and Zeke would call me mama. And I remember Leslie had come home from like a day at Ray Alana's. She was very she could be in moods.
Oh God,
yeah,
mood is a nice word to put.
Yeah,
that's a nice word to put.
You know, I just and so I remember I had put the kids down. The girls had just cooked dinner because the boys didn't cook. You know, it was normally the girls cooked.
Yeah.
You cleaned up.
Very the kids, traditional roles.
Very.
Yeah.
Very. Even though, like, they would have some of us girls doing the lawn work and stuff that. Like, it did. The girls were multi-purpose.
That's true. That's true. But the boys weren't. They didn't do it.
But
that would be the spirit of homosexuality if they got in the kitchen too much. So,
and there's plenty of that. So,
so you're taking care of their kids all the time, and Leslie's in a mood when she comes home from Ray Alana's.
Yeah, and I end up folding the clothes wrong on the kitchen table.
You folded the clothes wrong.
Oh, yeah. the towels would not fit in the cabinet. And she picked up a metal, they had like industrial sized laundry hampers. And I remember she picked one up and threw it at my head.
Oh my God.
And she was so upset. And I had to go outside, and I remember I got yelled at for even like walking away, but I needed a second. And yeah.
Wow. So she just picked it up and threw it at you and had to dodge to get out of the way.
It hit the wall behind me. I don't remember dodging.
Well, I mean, I'm sure that's probably a shocking moment anyway.
Yeah.
And then once you went outside, they were like,
get back inside.
Did they ever say things like you to, like, who are you to talk to my wife that way or to do that to my wife?
Oh, if Mark got upset, he went from happy-go-lucky to this screaming, angry.
Yeah.
Very. He meant it intimidating.
Absolutely.
And it was like, how dare you? I remember like being like this far away. Yeah.
Like a trauma response.
I'm sorry. But yeah, like it was intense.
Yeah. Oh my God. Yeah, I feel like they thought they could just treat us however they wanted.
Yeah.
So you felt like you were basically their slaves. You basically raised the kids. I mean, that's really hard because I think something that a lot of people don't talk about is that we bonded with those kids too.
Oh my gosh. I cried. When I finally left, I almost went back several times just to go take care of the kids. I had no intention about going back for Jesus or anything like that. I just wanted to know that like somebody was going to take care of the kids and spend time with them. And I was still in high school and I felt that. Like, who's gonna, because they weren't.
Yeah.
I also remember a time, like, whenever they put the girls upstairs, before we had built the tiny house. And I was on my cycle and I didn't have feminine products. And I took some out of Caroline's bathroom. And I remember we got pulled into a family house meeting or whatever downstairs. And they were going to pray over us because we had stolen from them.
So even though they didn't support. Multiple times they told people they were stealing for taking feminine products.
But they wouldn't support them. And what do you expect me to do? Just free bleed?
Right. So let's talk about that because we were all talking about that earlier. Did they ever help you with anything you needed? And if so, how much, right? Because it's not the same if they're like giving you a pair of pants here and there or if they're giving you donations. It's like not the same.
Leslie did take me shopping once.
Okay.
She did.
And how long were you with them?
Oh my gosh. What year? 14 when I said 2013, 2014 to 2017.
Okay. And so you went shopping with her once?
Once.
Okay.
Where she got me something.
Yeah. Got you something.
Yeah. She bought me a few items, but it was dance gear because she didn't want my butt showing because I was making boys stumble.
Of course.
And so
heaven forbid we have feminine bodies.
Yeah, I couldn't wear the like Nike shorts like Caroline and them wore. I had to wear basketball shorts.
Oh.
So
yeah, double standard.
But
let's be honest, most of the time they didn't buy things like our toothbrushes or our clothes or like
deodorant.
Occasionally, like once or twice, probably to be able to say they did it.
Yeah.
I think they bought me something once during a Christmas. Like they bought me a few things. But that was donated money too. But
I do remember, it's a little bit different for me because they actually have an adopted daughter now. Mark and Leslie actually offered to adopt me. That's how intertwined
I'm finding that out.
I was with the dollars. So I spent Christmases with them. Like their, oh my gosh, what's that called? Like Leslie's parents. So the grandparents.
Yeah.
They even bought me Christmas presents.
Yeah.
So I was included.
Yeah.
But if I did anything wrong, I was.
Yeah.
It was.
But included is
jolting.
Also. Yeah. Included is also a heavy word because there was still a big difference in the way that.
Oh, I still wasn't their daughter.
Right.
Because
the way that we were treated.
Yeah. Because Mark would accept me and call me like. He even got me my purity ring. But.
Yeah, that's weird.
Yeah.
Because he did that for a lot of people. We'll get into that later.
Yes, we can. But, to make me feel so included from one of them, but then I was not included by Leslie.
Yeah.
It was a weird dynamic.
Different.
But then...
Yeah, and then a lot of times they wouldn't help us buy stuff. They did not make sure we went to the doctor regularly, nothing like that. No dentist.
There was definitely no dentist visits.
Yeah. The adoption thing, let's talk about that real quick. Because I've had actually several people tell me that they wanted to adopt them. And I think it's a tax thing.
Oh, definitely.
For show, right?
Yeah.
And more control. But I didn't realize that was happening so early on, too.
It wasn't made to look like a tax thing, obviously.
Of course.
But...
we didn't even have any idea they were making money.
Yeah, no, but I do remember, like, around that time, I remember my mom finally getting a hold of me because it was very hard to get a hold of your child when you were in.
Right.
And she had gotten her taxes back, and they had claimed me.
Right.
And
they did not ask her.
They did not ask my mom. They claimed me as homeless. They put me on the front page of the Courier in our town talking about all the good they had done and called me homeless.
They were in the paper several times, and Leslie got onto me for getting upset that they had called all of us like neglected or abused teens. Yeah.
Whenever that wasn't the case,
yeah, some of us were not neglected.
I wasn't court ordered or anything by those means.
Right.
And so that caused a huge rift with my family, saying I was homeless, and then it affected my mom's money, who was a single mom.
Right. And they were still providing for us. They still monetarily, a lot of the time, were the ones taking us to doctors or keeping us on their insurance or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah.
Obviously, there were a lot of things that happened to you there.
Yeah.
How did you start to think about getting out?
I wanted to see my friends at school. I wanted to not feel like I had like a spy with me in every move. I mean, I remember you weren't allowed to shower in the bathroom by yourself over at the girls' dorm. Like, I just wanted a sense of normalcy.
Yeah.
I wanted to see my little brother. I wanted to be in choir again. I wanted to go and do things. I was so tired of just being controlled.
Yeah, because I think you really start to feel trapped. It's so suffocating.
It's so easy to feel trapped because on top of being singled out, you're also put with these same people every day. And you get pinned against each other and used
as like weapons against each other.
Yeah.
And other people too.
Yeah.
Because we were always judging everybody else too.
Well, and there was also such a hard, I don't know if it was that way for y'all because you were definitely before me, but for me, there was such a high aspiration to be a leader. You know, I didn't want to leave until I had made that notch in my belt and I had like completed the program. Yeah, kind of thing.
Yeah.
So
they made you have like these goals that kept you there too.
Yeah.
Almost like, but you're trying to prove to them that you can do it, right?
Yeah.
It's all to like prove to them that you can do it. What kind of effects has this had on you?
Eating disorders, definitely, because through all of the dancing and things like that, you know, there was times that we would be hungry and I would go back for seconds and Leslie would make comments. And,
always.
Are you sure you need that? Blah, 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 kind of thing. And
spirit of gluttony.
Yeah. But just so many things. And so things like that,
couldn't even go into the cabinets without anybody commenting on what you did. I used to sneak into the pantry and like shove granola bars in my face.
Oh my gosh, I had a thought about the pantry the other day when it was still in the garage and it was hot in there. I remember we had gotten home from doing something and we were so tired that the dollars got to go take naps. But me and a couple of the other girls, it was like the middle of summer and they're like, go clean out the garage.
Oh my God.
And the fridge in there. And it was... But I was content doing it because I didn't want to be around them.
At least we could like eat too.
Yeah. Sneak food out of the freezer. Yeah. But talking about, what were we just talking about?
We were talking about the kind of effects we've had because that's one of the effects that it's had on you as an eating disorder.
Oh my gosh. Being a woman in today's society, about my clothes, the way I dress, feeling like I have to have everything covered.
Yeah.
Even though my shoulder is not going to be the cause for somebody.
Yeah.
To do something.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with you. There's nothing wrong with the person who's looking at you and going like, you're a sexual being just because I want you to be.
Yeah.
And so, you know, obviously we've had to work through a lot of things with like relationships and the way we see people in the world. I know actually you said earlier you've had complex trauma symptoms.
Yes.
Tell me more about that for you.
Ever since I was 17 is when I got diagnosed with CPTSD. And that is whenever I started getting panic attacks. Was immediately right after I left, feeling like I had failed myself, that I was never gonna make it into heaven. Like I had basically felt the pressure of like eternal doom.
Yeah, you left them.
Life. Yeah.
So you left what God had.
Yeah.
Did you ever try to talk to them about how you felt about what they did?
I've reached out to other leaders, but I've never tried to reach out to Mark or Leslie personally.
Yeah, I talked to them. At some point, I had dinner with them after I had left and tried to hurt myself. And they basically, I think I told them that I felt like there wasn't enough love. And they said no, that I was wrong, that I preached what they preached too, and I did those things too. And they didn't take any accountability for that.
Shannon, you were a child.
I know. That's what I'm saying. We were kids.
You were a kid.
But that's exactly what they try to say. But I think at least now we have more awareness of the fact that kids can't consent to this.
No.
And they didn't have a choice in this.
That's another thing is I grew up in a home where I did have sexual abuse happen. Mm-hmm. And they would put me on stage and ask me to talk about it.
Yes.
Repeatedly to strangers over and over again for their financial gain. I would remember having to do things at banquets, share my testimony. And, you know, if I was doing a solo in a dance and Leslie couldn't feel the spirit off of me, I had to push harder, you know, which just looking back now has really caused some deconstruction and faith issues and things like, was that real? Mm-hmm. Was I just acting out of fear? Yeah. Did I even have a real relationship with God in those instances? Because I didn't buy into the God that they were selling me in a lot of ways. And then I remember there was a point in time at the banquets whenever we would help them, like, collect the checks. Like, you walk around with the thing and like you would see the numbers that would go in there. Yeah. And, you know, like I said, I was included with the dollars on some things. And so I remember even like sitting there next to Mark whenever he did his taxes one year.
Well, that's what I was going to say is I remember you meeting with me once when you were having questions.
Yes.
And us talking, and
I had seen some tax information on them, and I was like, how are they pulling these numbers? Yeah. And we're still going out all the time. I remember like we would have to go around in the summer, and we had these little plastic jars, and we would put our picture in them, and we would take them to businesses, and they would be able to put coins in them.
Yeah, they're probably, well, they're not around anymore, but I remember seeing them even whenever I was in Russellville. I had a friend from La Huerta go, that's a cult. She was in it.
We always went there.
Yeah.
Do you remember how they would make us share meals?
Oh, yeah. They made us share meals all the time. And the thing is, most of our food came from Mistreatment Mission.
Yeah.
So, I don't know.
Like, even whenever we went out to lunches and stuff.
Yes. They would, at La
Huerta, you would only get such a portion.
Yes.
And then, here, share this after we didn't eat breakfast. Mm-hmm. We rushed you around. Yeah. You're going to go eat after church. Yep. You're going to go to dance practice afterwards. Yep. Then you're going to come home and clean and do shower. And then you have to be up
always
ready
hungry
the next morning at like, 6 a.m. For Bible study? Yeah. To get yelled at in the morning before you go to school?
Right. Yeah. It was always a yell fest.
Yeah,
it was always like a berating you every time at 6 a.m.
There's no chill.
No. So, Sierra, what else do you want to share about your story? What else do you want people to know? And if you think of other things and later, we can always add it in.
I want to tell you, Mark and Leslie, that you didn't get to break me. And I hope that you see this, and I hope that you know that you didn't get to win.
Yeah. Fuck them.
Fuck them.
Fuck y'all.
Fuck y'all.
Fuck it.